This is Channel 253.
Move to Tacoma! On this episode of Move to Tacoma.
Your average person, I would say, is lukewarm to benign. There are very few assholes when you actually knock doors, for example. Yes. Yeah, it's surprising. It's the reverse internet, right? And so what most people say when I've asked them about their concerns, which mostly came down to housing stability, homelessness, affordability, and just public safety, not feeling safe. One of my most memorable interactions, two of them actually. One was a lady who lived in the Lincoln District off of South 38th said, when I walk my dog, I drive him to the North End first. That was one. The other was someone who teaches at a local high school who said, in 2 years, I've lost 4 of my students to gun violence.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you. We're back. Move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma.
You'll like it.
Move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma.com.
I'm Marguerite, and this is Move to Tacoma, and I'm here today with Mayor-Elect Anders Ibsen. Welcome to the podcast, Anders.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You have been on Channel 253 podcasts, I think, before.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So I'm excited to talk to you about how you became mayor. Like, how does that even happen? And what is it that you're going to do with the city now that you're not really the boss of it as the mayor, right? What is your job when you're the mayor of a city?
Well, it's to make sure things happen. I mean, I would say that the position of mayor is something that we place artificial constraints on. I mean, it's true that we're not a mayor-council form of government in which the mayor is an executive who hires and fires a team and runs the daily operations. In theory, strictly speaking, the mayor under a city manager form of government is 1 of 9 votes. But in practice, there's a quote in political science that I keep coming back to, and that is, it's not the title that makes the leader, but the leader who makes the title, right? And for me, it's ultimately about representing people and having a theory of action, actually achieving things, right?
Can't wait to dive into that.
Right.
All right, but before we do, when did you move to Tacoma and why?
Well, in 1991, I was 4. My parents made me.
Okay, I don't think you're the only one.
Sure.
I think that there's a strong legacy of people that have moved because mom and dad moved them here.
Sure.
And where do you live in Tacoma, and what do you like about it?
General North End area, kind of around the Proctor neighborhood. I love me some Tacoma. I've bounced around different neighborhoods, but never left. I've lived in the West End, North End, South End. I went to school. I commuted to Olympia. I was a greener. But besides that, I'm a product of our schools. I went to St. Pat's, Truman, Stadium. I was actually a soda kid in their first class.
Oh, that's right. You were a soda kid.
And I've always identified with Tacoma just in the sense that what a lot of my real estate clients, with my private sector hat on for a quick second, say is that it's not even just a question of cost or affordability, because what does it even mean anymore? Tacoma is not very affordable for locals anyhow.
It's expensive.
Right. But what I keep hearing from people, say PCSing here, relocating here for civilian work, is that we're enough. And that is, we have this urban quality of life and the potential for amazing and innovative urban quality of life, but without as much of the busyness, without perhaps the performative nature of some of the larger cities, but with still the world-class waterfront, the access to parks, a literal ocean, a national park that people will literally fly from other parts of the country that you can just drive an hour and a half to get to.
Right.
All the other amenities, all the opportunities. If you're a service member, just all the more reason. And right here in my backyard, and it's enough. And that's something that a lot of people told me and that I myself identify with.
That's awesome. So if I may ask you to be a little more specific about your neighborhood of North Tacoma, Proctor area, what do you like about living there? What's your favorite thing these days?
Honestly, I mean, I'm an old dad, right? I'm going on 40. I've got a 4-year-old. He tires me out a lot. And in between, running a business and soon to be running a city and, parenting a 4-year-old, I mean, I just like to keep it pretty chill. I like to walk around, read in a cafe, go to Peaks and Pints, go to the farmer's market, just experience my city, take my kid to the zoo. But there's so much else to do as well. I mean, I frequently go running with my friends, with the Tacoma Runners and with others at Point Defiance, the waterfront and other areas. It's a very runner-friendly city, and there are some great runner groups, for instance. We could make it more runner-friendly, obviously, and that's to preview a little bit perhaps more on the municipal side of things. But
this is a unique problem to interviewing someone who just became the mayor of a city, is that I keep asking him about his neighborhood, and he's like, but actually, let's talk about the whole city. So I
Right.
love that. Let's just
you
dive in.
experienced it. It almost became my neighborhood. Yeah.
Yes.
Been everywhere.
So the first thing is I know you already. I knew you before you were running for mayor. So I've known you since you were on the city council the first time 100 years ago. When were you on the council before?
2012, 2019.
2012 to
100 years ago.
2019. And you were young when you were on the city council.
25, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty young. And you were, I mean, this is the lore. I'm just going to explain Anders' lore the way I explain it when I meet other people. You were a 2-term city councilman. You were primaried by the Democrats, right? You were kind of too progressive for the Democrats.
No,
is that not? Should I not tell people that anymore?
It's literally the opposite, actually.
Oh.
So the Democrats actually entirely endorsed me. Labor endorsed me. I was opposed by a conservative Democrat, and I was opposed by most members of the city council, including the then mayor at the time. I won, and what I'd like to think is that since I'm not the kind of person who holds grudges, I like to focus on the work. The majority of those people were co-sponsoring my resolutions and ordinances. I was working on their stuff, and we got right back to work.
So, yeah, and clearly you all did get right back to work. But I just think it's an interesting thing. And the thing that I always think is interesting about you is even without sort of the full establishment machine behind you, you can get reelected back then because you were a door knocker. You're like an in-the-streets person. You go face-to-face with lots of people, and you have the wherewithal and the capacity to do that. And I think even people that don't know you get out there and talk to people.
I call it the reverse internet. So think of the worst toxicity of just the bottom crevices of the Reddits and the Metas and the X's and so forth. And imagine the total virtuous opposite of that. Imagine talking to someone face-to-face who might be MAGA or might be just otherwise totally the opposite to you, and actually having civil human discussion and dialogue and sounds kind of cliche, but the realization that most people generally want the same things, especially once you break past these artificial constructs.
We're coming back to this.
The reverse internet.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
So the next stage of getting to know you, because I knew you as a city councilman, as a public figure, but I got to have you as a client. Like I matched you to a realtor.
That's right.
In like a very classic way. Like that's what I do for a living, is I help find people a realtor. And then a few years later, you came to me and said, even though you were already a real estate appraiser, you've been a real estate appraiser for over 10 years, right?
Yeah, since 2013.
Okay, and so you came and said, actually, I'd like to become a real estate agent. And so now I know you as a peer, as a real estate agent who I sometimes refer clients to, especially when they like someone very nerdy that knows housing data numbers. Like you are the chief nerd. Like I don't know anybody that knows better housing numbers than you. So that's a compliment.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say that, like, I have a professional relationship with you, and not just because we're colleagues, but because I've sent you business. So I think, like, putting that on the table. But I'm going to still ask you very hard questions.
All right, ask away.
So now you're running you have run for mayor. You were elected as mayor. And I was actually surprised to hear that you were running for mayor when you told me. And I think the thing...
What was the biggest surprise, out of curiosity?
I think, like, the surprise is, like you're very successful as a real estate agent.
You're not the first person to say that, yeah.
And the thing is like, look, we all act successful, but you're one of the top agents in the city, and you got there very quickly. Like, you're very hardworking, and I would say the other part of this that I think is a side note from the real life internet, face-to-face thing that you do is you have a resilience in you that a lot of politicians and realtors that do similar things to you don't have. Like, people can get mad at you. And like you say, like, you're like, well, we just get back to work, or like you people don't like you and you're like, whatever. Like, that's very unusual. Is that okay? I've never said that to your face before.
Okay, well, that's appreciated.
Is it true?
Well,
I assume you have feelings.
It's not like I don't have feelings. It's just my feelings for what I want are stronger than the pettiness in front of me. Not this pettiness.
Is it always pettiness? Is it sometimes just disagreement?
No, this is just podcast energy, but other pettiness.
Right. But like when you're out in the world, you're going to show up at somebody's door and they're not going to like you just because you're a politician, right? Or because they met you 10 years ago and they didn't like what you did then. That's how a small town is, a small city, right? Like is it a fair characterization to say that you have a little more resilience than the average person around being disapproved of?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily compare myself to that. I would just say that my approach is just disarmingly simple. I mean, I just want to win. And for me, winning means that our city is better, people live better, there's greater trust in the process, and we have something to show for our efforts. And I just keep it focused on that. And it's not like disagreement or drama won't happen. It will.
Yeah.
But it's more just keeping people focused on the things that matter, and then we deal with the other stuff when we have time.
Okay. So, all right. Now this is starting to sound like our breakfast when you told me that you were running for mayor. Because I was like, what are you going to even do? Like what? Like this is my trauma, right? Is you're not the first person I've known that's run for office and become an elected official, and that experience for me has been really disappointing repeatedly. Because what I'll do is I'll have a nice breakfast with someone when they tell me that they're running, or we'll have a conversation in a hallway, and they'll tell me, and I know them. I know that they are like me, like they have these beliefs, and they want to see these kinds of things happen in the city, and they want to see these things happen in the government. And then once they're elected, it's like there's this veil that comes down.
Yes.
And they, what about policing? What about housing? What about all this stuff? Like, it's like they all have to sign this contract with the city lawyer and can never speak candidly again. And so you can hear how salty I am. Like, I don't want to be like this.
Yeah.
And, but you're the person in front. I've never thought I'd have a person I knew that ran for mayor and won. And now you're going to be elected. Like, what do you think you're going to be able to do? You've already been on the council. You know what the mayor can do and what they can't do. What do you think you can do?
Well,
and what are you going to do?
Sure. Well, I've worked with multiple mayors, city managers. I hired 3 executives, 2 city managers and a utility director. So we have to be aware of our limitations, obviously. We can't overpromise. But just like in a real estate situation, you don't want to negotiate against yourself. You don't want to impose limitations that you don't necessarily have. Power is what people think you have, right? It's all a social construct, right?
Okay.
And so what I would say...
And people think a mayor is powerful.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows what a city manager is, right? I mean, people just... When people were talking to me at the door, that they were just upset, and they said, oh, we need some change, right? People just think the mayor is who is in charge, right? And so if you just articulate the vision and bring people along and just make sure that there's good overlap, right? It's not about reinventing the wheel and doing things that are entirely out of left field. It's in my experience more about realigning and trying to make connections between things that are already happening or haven't even necessarily been articulated well. So, for example, we have a really successful therapeutic court when it is applied in Tacoma. And for people's information, therapeutic court is about alternatives to incarceration. So someone who's nonviolent, who did something dumb like shoplifting or some other kind of property crime, graffiti, what have you, instead of just immediately being booked into jail, which with today's staffing problems and other dysfunctions in the penal and court system, it often just means being recycled out into the community and going through just a chaotic mess, right? See also all of just the repeated morale problems among our police force and the community. How about having something that's more humane in the sense of giving people a real option of getting treatment for underlying problems, having real options of righting themselves, being held accountable, being removed from the situations, and undoing the harm that they've caused because they have committed a crime, but in so doing, avoiding incarceration, still being employable, still being houseable, and costing the taxpayers a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, I think most people will get behind that. You say we already have a therapeutic court, but we're kind of not using it?
It's not being scaled to the greatest extent possible. And this is from conversations I had with municipal court judges, people who are very enthusiastic believers in the system. But when it is applied, for example, when people go through therapeutic court, whether it's drug court, whether it's community court, or some of the other subsets, it's insane. The number of people who are successfully diverted from jail and complete their course is something like 90%, for example.
Wow.
So imagine if that was more systematically scaled, if we did something like that in greater partnership with Pierce County and perhaps with other jurisdictions, what more could we do? How many people could we serve? How could we improve our city and build further confidence? So that's an example of something that's potentially transformative and very innovative, but it's not out of left field. It's not the good idea fairy on your shoulder. It's just taking something that's already there, tweaking it a few different ways, bringing a few more people to the table and just scaling it and systematizing it appropriately.
And
also Home in Tacoma and other major policies.
And you're saying, like, as mayor, I can't just wave a magic wand and make that happen.
No.
But I should be the one that's providing the leadership and the accountability to keep everybody moving in the same direction.
And the focus and just, you said it, accountability. So one of the key ways, and so many of these things are just small but subtle changes. So in the legislative process, for example, this is a deep dive into the weeds. Tell me if I'm going too deep with any number of the things I'm rambling about.
Yeah.
Whenever a member of the council introduces legislation in City Hall, it goes through what's called a CC&R, Council Committee Request, which it basically outlines, I'm going to do this thing, here's how much it's going to cost, here's what staff says it's going to look like. But for example, there's zero to do with timelines on this thing. So anytime you have a business plan or do anything in the private sector, you always define the end state, which is, end of year revenue or market share or what have you, and when am I going to get to that desired end state, and what are the different benchmarks along the way. So why can't we legislate the same? Why can't we do that and have greater understanding of staff capacity and just have a clear administrative structure along with it too? So a lot of it is just this nerdy kind of deep-seated stuff, but it's very powerful when done right. And back to the role of mayor, something that I've always told people about our wacky system in Tacoma is that the notion that mayor under a city manager system or under the Tacoma system, which I would actually argue is not a pure city manager system. I'll get to that in a second. I would say at its best, the Tacoma mayor is less like being a governor, because that's what a strong mayor is, right? You hire a cabinet, you hire an amazing administrative team, you negotiate with the legislative branch, and you just handle stuff day by day, basically, and you maybe veto stuff you don't like. I would say in the Tacoma system, where unlike most pure city manager systems where the mayor is literally just a title, you are a council member and your colleagues on the council say you're the mayor.
Actually, I thought that's what we had.
No, you run for mayor in Tacoma.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I ran for mayor in Tacoma, right?
To be the mayor. You didn't get appointed by your peers.
That's correct,
right?
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, over 35,000 some people said I should be the mayor, right?
Yeah.
And so that's significant. There's extra staff, there's extra access to executive level people, there's agenda setting, but beyond even just the soft power of those administrative and different kinds of relational details, the fact of the matter is I would say at its best, the institution of Tacoma mayor is more like a speaker of the House. So does anyone doubt that Lori Jenkins has power? For example, right?
No.
Right.
I would never dare.
Sure. No one would, right? And so what is a House Speaker really? A House Speaker is a policymaker, but also someone who leads a caucus. It's someone who finds the areas of overlap, the consensus between a group of people, and is just a cat herder in chief who makes sure that there's focus and a general direction, the articulation of a vision, and accountability for getting there. And I think at its best, the Tacoma mayor can do that.
Okay, so briefly, let's just say you and I, you're going to run for re-election. It's a few years down the road.
2029, yes.
Yeah, and you've been working away at this, and you and I have another conversation. What have you accomplished?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to have accomplished in this first sprint?
Yeah, so the big things I'm running on are the things I'm going to focus on in the first quarter. I mean, I'm loath to say 100 days. That's
okay, so you're saying that the things that maybe you do when you door knocked and you talked to people, the things you ran on are the actual same things that you intend to.
It's shocking. The things that people told me are important are things that are important to me that I want to do.
Okay,
right?
so and what are those things very clearly so that we can hold you accountable?
That's the whole point, right?
Okay.
So and making sure that we're doing a deeper dive, right? So overwhelmingly, people are concerned about public safety. People want to feel safe in their neighborhoods, that they want to feel like they can be involved, they can actually step out and participate.
Yeah.
People want to see a meaningful, visible, tangible solution to homelessness to the greatest extent we can in a local government context. And people need to see greater opportunity in the overall economy. We need to see greater resiliency and more actual private sector jobs, not just the over-reliance on the public sector that we're seeing, for example.
Okay, so wait. Public safety, homelessness, the economy. These sound like maybe bigger than Tacoma, these issues.
Well, that's why we're doing the deeper dive, right?
Okay, great.
If we just stop there, then they're meaningless.
Really.
Right. So,
and also, how can we hold you accountable when this is the city of 200,000 people, right? What do we even all agree on what safety is?
Sure,
right?
absolutely, right. And so that's why I always have follow-up questions. So my general shtick whenever I talked with people at the door about what they needed was it would always be, knock, knock, knock. Actually, we're on kind of a chintzy podcast. Can I?
Chintzy? How dare you?
Chintzy in the sense of being
the tablecloth is chintzy.
Effective and efficient and not extravagant is what I mean, right?
All right, fine. I'm over it.
I'm Scandinavian. I mean, I'm the chincer in chief.
It's fine.
So
yeah.
I could doorbell you and show you.
Okay, show me. All right. What do you want?
Oh, hey there. I'm running for mayor, Anders Ibsen. How you doing today?
I'm great. What are you doing?
Okay. Well, if you're in the middle of something, I'll make this super quick. I'm mostly just here in the neighborhood to not just introduce myself, but also just to listen and learn about what you think is important and just what you think the city needs to focus more on. Your opinion. Anything top of mind for you?
I don't like driving down the road and seeing people camping on. I'm acting. I don't like people seeing people camping on the side of the road. I don't think that's very good.
Yeah, tell me more about that. What are you seeing around here?
I just see people. I see tarps. I've seen some crazy stuff, and I don't want to see it anymore. And I don't care where you put them. I just don't want to see them in my neighborhood.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely unsustainable what we've had in Tacoma. We have a system that's very reactive. We just move people from neighborhood to neighborhood. I don't think that's sustainable or humane or responsible. And what I support is working in closer conjunction with Pierce County and our surrounding jurisdictions. So it's not just the Tacoma show, and that we're actually finding sustainable methods of not just connecting people with shelter, but also making sure that fewer people fall between the cracks and become homeless in the first place. So I definitely support greater efficiencies with our nonprofit providers.
This is a mouthful, Anders.
Yeah. Well, you asked, right?
Yeah. Well, and I guess what I'm looking for. I mean, I'm taking my cranky neighbor hat off
That's
right
all right.
now. But like, okay, so there are people in the community that want safety. Or they want the feeling of safety that they get when they don't see people suffer. Yeah,
Right.
Like they want the feeling of safety that they get when they don't see people suffering in their midst. But they don't necessarily mind if those people are suffering somewhere they can't see them.
Well, actually, no. And this is something I think you'd be encouraged by, right?
All right, tell me.
Well, for starters, most people really aren't cranky. There is a surprising benignness to voters.
I might be measuring this off the comment section, which you've already said is not the way to measure public sentiment.
Well, and that's the thing is so much of what we're talking about is immeasurable, right? And so that's why the accountability is more nuanced. But your average person, I would say, is lukewarm to benign. There are very few assholes when you actually knock doors, for example. Yes. Yeah, it's surprising. It's the reverse internet, right? And so what most people say when I've asked them about their concerns, which mostly came down to housing stability, homelessness, affordability, and just public safety, not feeling safe. One of my most memorable interactions, two of them actually. One was a lady who lived in the Lincoln District off of South 38th said, when I walk my dog, I drive him to the North End first. That was one. The other was someone who teaches at a local high school who said, in 2 years, I've lost 4 of my students to gun violence, right?
Okay, that's a very different type of...
Extremely memorable, right?
Yeah.
And so... Generally speaking, when I've asked people, with some examples more dramatic than others, right? Other times it's usually something along the lines of just I don't feel safe. When people drive here, I do things that are extra precautions, right?
Right.
And my follow-up question to that was always, you might have noticed in our dialogue, was, okay, what are you noticing around here? Around here.
Yeah, like how does that apply
the neighborhood,
here? Yeah.
Right, this particular neighborhood. And most people, when I asked them that question, they didn't quite backtrack, but they usually said something along the lines of, well, it's actually kind of okay around here, but in general.
Interesting.
And so what that tells me is that from everything from safety to homelessness to infrastructure, like potholes, for example, so much of this is, I'm not saying less about individual actions and experiences in your own neighborhood, but the overall perception of the city as a whole, right? Because with crime, for example, we can talk about measurable performance metrics for how we can make 911 dispatching 20 seconds faster, right? We can do that. We should do that because that is life and death.
Yeah.
But even in a higher crime neighborhood, most people are not victims of crime.
That's
right?
so okay.
Right?
Doug is making his go to break face over your shoulder, so I'm going to take us to break, and then let's come back to that.
Let's do a deep dive.
Yeah.
This is Eric Hanberg with Channel 253.
I'm Doug Mackey.
And Doug Mackey asked to keep this short. So here it is. $4 a month, $40 a year, supports Channel 253. Go to channel253.com/membership.
More so, we'd like to thank our members, especially our long-time members.
Now it's too long.
Move to Tacoma!
And we're back with Anders Ibsen, Mayor-Elect of Tacoma. Thanks, Anders, for being here.
Of course.
So you were just making a point when we took it to break about how when you talk to people at the door, like I was assuming people were very grumpy and had general complaints, but you're saying no, like people generally haven't experienced an act of crime against their person. Like they have this general sense that the city is unsafe.
Correct.
So I definitely see this because, like, obviously I have a website that says nice things about Tacoma. Mm-hmm. And so if I say nice things or I make nice videos about Tacoma, there's always people in the comments that are like, this place sucks.
To Compton.
Yeah,
keep Tacoma fair.
And, thank you to Liz at Stockless Goods for encouraging me to buy this shirt. Tacoma, it's not that bad.
Oh, great. That shirt isn't that bad either.
Yeah, I know. It's not so bad.
Doesn't even look chintzy either.
It's not at all.
Right.
Thank you, Anders.
You're welcome.
But I think, like, this is the thing that is tricky, though, because you're saying, like, okay, so what we need to do is, well, you haven't said this, but like I'm assuming you're saying like, okay, we need to shift the way people feel about the city. And I can say as someone who does nothing more than say nice things about the city, like believe me, like there are people who have a problem with that part too. So like how can you be accountable to changing how we feel about where we live? When everybody is going to be measuring that off of their own things. And some people might even be measuring it off of the vibes in the Tacoma subreddit.
Right. And that's a really great question. I think where we go there in terms of accountability is, are we measuring the right things? Because a lot of the quantitative ways that we measure, I think, are very reactive. Like I said, most people, even in more challenged neighborhoods, will not be crime victims, right? So if our primary ways that we hold ourselves accountable are things like 911 dispatch times, how long does it take to get a response, things like that, then invariably we're talking to a very small subset.
That said, I mean, I would just feel better knowing somebody's coming and they're coming quickly.
Sure, and that's I'm not disagreeing with that fact, but if we're talking about general perception, I mean, one of the other common themes that people who brought up safety as a chief concern mentioned was police presence, right? So it wasn't necessarily I want faster response, when I am on the receiving end, but I want visibility. And does that necessarily have to be police? Can it be a community service officer? Can it be something from the city, some visible, tangible thing that makes them feel safe?
Well, and I mean, there's big impacts, like depending on, what gender you are, your race,
Certainly.
if you're other marginalized groups, like your relationship with the police is going to be different, and how safe you feel when the police are nearby. Like that's going to depend a lot on who you are and where you live.
Well,
right?
it's interesting you bring that up, though, because one of the chief complaints that you hear from, say, marginalized communities is, on the one hand, the feeling of being over-policed, but on the other hand, the feeling that they're taken even less seriously when there is a call, right? So it's not like responsiveness doesn't matter. It's not like it's black and white. It's about painting a bigger picture. And to be clear, when we talk about public safety, and there are a host of other issues and a couple of other key priorities of mine, we're not just talking about responding to problems. We're talking about actually working on the structural details of community building. Because when I think of public safety, I'm absolutely thinking of a fully staffed police department. I'm thinking of a fire department that actually has rigs and equipment and stations that aren't decrepit, that aren't risking first responder lives, that are actively available to people in need. I'm also thinking of vibrancy, social capital, and infrastructure that emphasizes walkability. I'm thinking of joy, like Porch Fest. I'm thinking of art. I'm thinking of things that make people engaged in the community. I mean, back to my contact in the Lincoln district, that lady who wants to feel safe. Safety to me is a single lady walking her dog in the Lincoln district. It means people it's foundational. It means people have the ability to interact with each other and talk to people. So the details are absolutely essential in terms of how we measure that kind of willingness, whether it's a survey, whether it's finding some way of measuring that engagement. But that would be what I'd really like to err on the side of is building social capital, building the perception of Tacoma in a more positive direction. What I will say real quickly before we get to your other question, because I know you're scheming there, something I think is really pertinent we should talk about, in a more optimistic direction on the question of homelessness versus crankiness.
Well, wait. We haven't got to homelessness yet. Can we stick to safety for one more second? Because we do need to go to homelessness.
There's some real subtlety with perception there. I'll just tell you that.
I believe it.
Right.
I believe it. And I can hear that you're like locked into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question that I have is, why don't we already have that? You're coming into office, and I mean, I'm assuming all I can hear, the only thing in my brain as you were talking was like, how are we going to pay for it? I assume if we could have funded better fire trucks and funded more community resource officers or whatever it is that you think is going to make people feel safe, we would have already done it. It must be that we don't have money in the budget.
That's certainly a part of it. I mean, we're a higher needs, lower tax-based community. We can't just print money like Seattle or Sammamish or Bellevue can necessarily, right?
Okay, so if it's just a part of it, what's the other part of it?
Well, the other part of it is the alignment and the strategy. So, for example, it begins and ends with funding and smarter allocation. For example, if I were to summarize the biggest problems with just the police and the fire departments, they both relate to staffing or funding, but in different ways. So with TPD, we have approximately 360 officers. It should be for a minimum of full staffing around 380. And as a result, you have a very young police force. I think an average, half or so have 5 years in the profession or less. So they're babies, right? They're just very young officers on average. overtime is rampant because there just aren't enough bodies to fill the shifts. And so you have this profound overextension that just makes it a purely reactive force. You don't have community policing. You don't have as much investigation for things like a drug house on the block, for example. So you don't quite make as much progress on those things. You're just barely checking in to do the reactive work, right? So there's no way around staffing there. With fire, there's staffing in the sense of responsiveness, but it's also deferred maintenance. We have trucks that sometimes don't work half the time, for example. We have really old structures.
Okay, so I mean, I hear this.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody who was elected mayor coming in wouldn't want to make sure we had enough staff, enough equipment. But I mean, the word on the street is we're actually going to have to be tightening the belt on the budget.
Yes.
So how can we be investing in things that have been underfunded if we're going to have less funding?
And that's why there's a larger strategy above just these individual issues, right? I mean, when we talk about the budget, we're talking about how we can look at every conceivable option on the revenue side, on making smart realignments within the budget. Are there non-traditional ways that we can look at things like employee compensation? For example, if we're talking about attracting and retaining key people, instead, I'll just give you one example. Instead of just the core, wages, benefits, what have you, aspects of compensation, why not look at key things that people really want, like childcare, for example, or taking a look at things like perhaps loan forgiveness, especially in the wake of the dysfunction at the Department of Education. Could we look at things that are more creative, that are less of an immediate hit on the general fund, that can still have the same effect, for example? So can there be greater creativity for that, other non-traditional things we're looking at? And that's broader. Can we look at procurement, for example? I mean, why are there only 2 companies in the United States that manufacture fire trucks? I mean, we wonder why fire trucks cost $500,000. Could we work in greater conjunction with other jurisdictions, the state, the county, what have you, to have more innovative
bulk order?
Yeah, purchasing and procurement, so we can command better prices for things our departments need, for example. So can we look at things that have not even been uncovered yet? What I will also say, though, is an ounce of prevention is just 10 million pounds of cure. So something that I'm really interested in pursuing on the public safety front would be scaling and working with our therapeutic court system. So we've had some very novel successes. Our municipal court system has what's called therapeutic court, which is an alternative to the normal carceral system for nonviolent offenders. Not quite to the level of well-found, so not people who are an immediate threat to themselves or others, but just dumb stuff, right? Like petty crime, shoplifting, graffiti, things like that, right? Kids mostly, right? But there's usually some underlying factor, right? So wouldn't it be great to scale a system that, when people are engaging with it, is tremendously successful in holding people accountable and restituting the victims of that crime, but over the long term, diverting from the very expensive county jail process and the booking process and superior court potentially, or municipal court, and having a success rate of well over 90%, right? Okay. And so that means people stay employable, they stay housable, and don't become wards of the state further down the road. Imagine if that could be scaled and systematized in greater conjunction with, say, the county, for example. If we could have a smarter approach that down the road saves significant sums of money and also transforms lives and keeps the community safe. That's public safety too.
Okay, so whether it comes to public safety, like justice, like homelessness, what I'm hearing is, because we're not going to have more resources. There's not help coming at the federal level, most likely.
There is some conversation about local options. We can talk about that too.
Okay, but just like, can we speak broadly?
Yeah.
And if we can't, let me know. But like, what I'm hearing in the zeitgeist is we're not going to have more money coming from on high. At the city level, things are only getting more expensive. Labor goes up, costs of stuff goes up, taxes are not going up so far. Like, you have the budget you have. You're coming into this role as a leader of a team, but you can't just unanimously say this is happening or that's happening, right? And so in each of these areas, I'm just trying to understand what specifically you're going to be able to do to make any of these things happen. You're saying the judges are saying we have this court, we're underutilizing it.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is partnerships. And then with homelessness, we can't unilaterally handle homelessness in Tacoma, right? Partnerships? It's all partnerships? It's all...
That's one component, right? So this is ultimately all legislative. This is all ultimately a majority of the council, the city council, instructing our staff to say this is a priority. And so whether that's...
Instructing the city's staff.
Yes. And so whether that takes the form of an interlocal agreement, which we've already started the process of with homelessness, that there's actually what's called a unified regional agreement with with Pierce County, for example, to have more of a unified regional approach. Unified regional approach is what the new system stands for, and that's all about removing the duplication that's rampant through these service providers, making sure there's greater alignment of local policy, and also better data sharing so that people fall through the cracks less and get the help they need, while also burdening individual municipalities and their systems less. So that's one such example. But partnership, yes, but also just looking at alternative systems. So back to the example of therapeutic court, we already have a system. We already have an infrastructure set up through the municipal court system. Can we scale it, and can we just put in place smarter procedures and processes?
But how do we scale it without spending more money? Or is that, that's why I said
we're
partnership.
already spending the money, right?
Right, that's the question.
Right, and so this is just like, how do we afford Medicare for all, right? I mean, we're already paying an arm and a leg, more than any other rich nation in the world, for premiums, for deductibles, for recurring chronic sicknesses, because people don't visit the doctor, because people take an Uber to the hospital versus taking an ambulance, right?
100%.
We are already far overpaying in terms of jail, in terms of bail, in terms of the ramifications of people missing bail, in terms of people becoming unhousable, unemployable because they go through the criminal justice system and all the ramifications of that. We're talking about upstream and downstream problems to the tunes of millions of dollars and thousands of ruined lives, right? So we are already paying for these things. And even if we are talking about upfront expenses, what we're talking about, besides just the dollars of savings, is we're talking about doing something better.
Okay. One of the things that I worry about when I've never, this is the second time I've had a mayor of Tacoma, even though you're mayor-elect. You're almost mayor. You're almost mayor. You're baby mayor. You're nearly mayor. Like, the other time that I had a mayor on was Marilyn Strickland, and I knew a lot less about Tacoma 10 years ago when I interviewed her. And I feel like it's a big responsibility to ask you questions. And I'm not really hearing... I mean, I think you're saying, I believe the sincerity of what you're saying, but I can't really put my brain on something that's like, yeah, this is the step. Like, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that. And I assume part of that is just because you have to collaborate with other people, and you don't know exactly how this is going to unfold. But in the spirit of, we want to, you are an accessible person. You've made yourself accessible to people one-on-one in real life. How do we hold you to a metric? What is the metric we're holding you to?
Sure. So first and foremost, if we're talking back to public safety, for example, we have to ensure that when we confirm the police chief, for example, and that when we articulate the funding.
Because we're getting a new police chief and we're getting a new city manager. Like, we're getting a whole new leadership and a new judge. Yeah, we're getting a whole new set of people.
Right,
okay,
right,
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, that as we fully staff the police department, for example, we have to make sure that there's a clear through line, a clear understanding about where the resources are going and what the actual plan is for safety, so that we already have these plans in place. And that's part of the frustration that I've heard from so many people in the community too, is that just having an ethic of following our own plans as well. I mean, we do have a community safety action strategy, for example. We do have a lot of these plans. We've had a violent crime reduction plan, for example, which
you just have to follow it.
We've had some steps followed, but not all, for example.
Okay.
So a lot of this is about, again, back to the example of not necessarily something from scratch, but articulating and revisioning stuff that's already there. We already have a very inspirational system in place. What if we actually scaled it and we invented new systems and processes and empowered people to come up with meaningful measurements according to it, like jail diversion, for example? That is an incredible metric, right? Because that's still people being held accountable. That's still very much related to perceptions of safety. That's the main reason we lost the Fred Meyer on 72nd and Pacific, for example, was just rampant shoplifting and just the sheer demoralizing sight of seeing people leave with shopping carts full of stolen goods day after day after day. From the perspective of the employees, the shoppers, even Fred Meyer themselves, right?
Right.
And so having that kind of accountability with that compassion is essential. So we can absolutely attach metrics to that. We already have some of them. But I think what's more crucial, and I think more important than what I think you're getting at with metrics, is making sure we're asking the right questions. And
well, yeah, and I mean, I know you, and I've had conversations with you about various political things before, so I know you're progressive. And I think I would say, I think of myself as progressive for a realtor. I think of you as progressive for a realtor, right? I think of you as progressive for a Democrat, right? Do you identify as a Democrat?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But now that you're going to have power, with my trauma of having all these friends that go in and then suddenly what are you going to? I don't understand what you're going to do. Am I asking this question too many times?
No, that's perfectly fine. You have absolutely every right to look at these things from every single angle, and that's the whole point of public policy making.
Yeah, because even things like okay, the Fred Meyer. So is the success something new opens there and they thrive? Is that a metric of success? In 3 years, you want to see somebody's opened a different supermarket there and they're doing great because of the things you've changed. I'm just trying to look for like what is tangible, like what can we really track here?
Here's what I would say differentiates me from mayor come lately, new person with starry eyes who gets a rude awakening, right?
I know you're not that. I know you already know what you can do.
So the cliche of a lot of people in the political world is, chess master, right? 4D chess, having a plan, articulating this, that, and the other. In my experience, that's really faulty because a good plan rarely survives contact with reality, not to mention 8 other votes that you need.
Okay.
And it's not like we are helter-skelter or willy-nilly with quantifiable metrics. We absolutely need them.
Yeah.
But in my experience, that's what a really good staff member does. The job of, in my opinion, the most effective visionary elected leaders is general articulation and vision. So instead of chess, I would say a much better metaphor for what good leadership and effective leadership means is more like the game of Go. Have you ever played Go before?
Ugh, I've tried. I feel like I'm not smart enough. It's actually really complicated.
It's deceptively hard, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's simple. And so what makes Go different from chess is chess, in my opinion, is not really an accurate metaphor for humans in politics because there are very specific rules and very linear moves that certain pieces can make. And how are people predictable or linear in real life, right? People do all sorts of random shit, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what Go is more concerned about is the gradual domination of space and maximizing of options and minimizing options to the opponent, right? And so in my experience, legislation and policymaking, especially like if you talk to a lawmaker from the state legislature where a really big signature bill takes multiple sessions to enact. I mean, we're spoiled in local government. You can actually pass big things in a year or two.
Of course.
We're much faster. So in my experience, what really gets you there and what gives you maximum options and space to interact with people and to get their ideas along is to articulate the vision of what you want, articulating the value that, for example, with public safety or with homelessness, that, hey, we shouldn't just recycle people through the neighborhoods. We need something that actually invests on the front end to keep people housed, to give people real options so there's a place to send them to, not just into another receiving neighborhood, for example, that we need to think of housing as a continuum between helping people in crisis and housing affordability and home ownership, articulating that vision, coming up with specifics along those lines, and then instead of micromanaging and coming up with the metrics yourselves, trusting the really competent staff that you bring in, which is why the city manager hire is so bloody crucial, to run with that and have that kind of creative chaos. I mean, it's like jazz, you have to know your scales, but you also have to improv too.
Okay. So this is I don't have any like resistance to what you're saying. It's just more like
we're doing jazz right now.
Right. I want to know, like, okay, let's move to the city manager, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something it's going to happen. Last time we got one of those, we did a whole nationwide search and they ended up appointing someone in-house. And it felt, from the outside looking in, very icky. And then, that city manager was in place for COVID, for a lot of really important, some stuff with the police, like a lot of bad, crazy things have happened. And she has, been at the nexus of that for the ire of a lot of people that wanted things to go differently, right? So we're in a fresh time. We're going to get a new city manager. Are we going to do a national search? Are we going to select one of those people? Or is there some predetermined internal person that everybody wants that I just don't know about because I'm not on the inside?
Well, there is currently a national search. I've been privy to some of those conversations, and it's a firm that's been retained to look at both local and national people.
Are we gonna pick one of those people that they give us?
Yes. I mean, the council. I mean, the council has the final say.
Because they gave us some people last time.
Right. I know, and that was frustrating for me as well. Right.
Okay.
But I mean, ultimately, something I'm committed to, just as the mayor, is making sure that we have someone that really aligns with the values of the community. And in my opinion, the biggest thing I'm looking for myself is transformative leadership. I mean, transformative leadership rooted in community. That's the biggest thing I'm looking for, because for me, good enough is not good enough. We do need the skill set. We do need the executive experience. We do need the understanding of how these systems work, how to negotiate, how to work with a legislative branch. But
well, this person is kind of, I mean, maybe that person would argue that this isn't true, but from my perspective, they're very insulated from accountability to the public. Like, you you and the city council are sort of there to kind of field and direct what they do, right? You're their boss.
Well, that's where leadership comes in, right? And that's
right.
That's,
so how do you actually like hold them account? Are you going to hold them accountable?
Well, I mean, that's where the hiring process comes in, is making sure that it's not just about selecting someone. It's about ensuring that the conversation and the process is the statement itself. It is the accountability, because we're baking in the values and the expectations for what the community values, and not even simply broader topics like public safety, like getting ahead of homelessness, like actually having a robust asset-focused economic development plan, but ensuring that the inclusivity, the co-creation with the community, the accountability, the transparency.
I think the accountability is like the linchpin right
Yes.
now. I think like people do not feel like that position. I don't want to. I can't speak for the whole city, but I just feel it kind of feels like everybody just sort of does what they want in there, and then they say it's because the lawyers told them they can't talk about it or they can't do anything. And I know you know what you can and can't do, which is why I keep pushing this.
So what I say to that, and to be clear, I mean, people have asked me about my own personal preferences, and I've about form of government, for example, and I mean,
I'm not talking about like changing our form of government. Certainly.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, there are certainly areas of ambiguity with the city manager system that is imperfect, right? I mean, I think I could be pragmatic and successful anyway.
It's the one we've got, so let's work with the one we've got.
What I tell people with concerns about the current system is look at Tacoma Public Utilities. We've had tremendous transformation there with the current director, Jackie Flowers. One of my best votes ever was appointing her. And just the things that she's instituted, not just in terms of great policies, but for example, retention interviews within the apparatus of TPU.
And that applies to the executive conversation how?
Yeah. Well, what that means is what the administrative vision is. So my job and my council's job is to articulate the broad strokes, the big picture about how we want to get to the desired end state and what it means to feel safe, what it means to have a greater solution for housing stability.
This is what I'm not kidding though. If in the past the city manager was not accountable to the people, if people didn't feel like the city manager was accountable, was that because of the council? Well, and if that was the case, then how will your council be different? And can you even control what these other folks do?
Sure.
Right. I feel like I'm asking like really basic questions, but I really don't understand.
Right.
Like,
and that's because this is a really Byzantine, convoluted system. It hasn't worked optimally in the past, and that's something we need to do differently. So something I'm really interested in doing through the city manager selection process, and it's something I'm currently in discussions with right now, is how to make sure that we're daylighting the values and the needs of the community on as far in the front end as possible, because
so that we know they're on board and we know they are willing to do what needs to be done,
or just that people know what's the most important thing to the public. So what I always tell people is that anytime you have a policy discussion, whether it's the budget, whether it's a major hire like this or anything, anyone's perspective and feedback matters the most on the front end. That's when you have the most influence. By the time something is a vote on the floor, then it's almost fait accompli, right? So making sure that there's as much room as possible for really dynamic public input, and also just that we're tying in the accountability, that we're tying in what our expectations are to the hire, so that instead of just figuring it out later or just having a neat plan after the fact, making sure the accountability and just defining what winning is on the front end. And that sets up the city manager to do well as well, because they understand what it means to do well and to be a good city manager.
Okay, so a question I have, and I don't know if this is one I should ask in public, but like, can we afford a quality candidate that you have faith in? Like, I feel like what happened last time was we put it out there, and the quality of the candidates wasn't like our budget doesn't afford a salary that gets us someone really good, or somebody comes to Tacoma and they work for 3 years as their stepping stone to a bigger city. Like, how do you think we can afford somebody who's great?
Well, I mean, it goes back to any other type of person we're trying to attract and retain in the workforce, right? People who sign up for public service aren't necessarily just compensation oriented, right? I mean, if they were just compensation oriented, they'd be in private industry, right? People who sign up to be city managers, council members, utility people, what have you, there is an ethic of service almost always, right?
That's a good reminder.
And so compensation absolutely matters, right? But I think what really matters the most in terms of retention as well as attraction is frankly just getting our own house in order. And that's primarily my own, back to accountability.
They want to come to a city where they can make cool things happen also.
Right. And even if there is disarray, or at least the perception that there's just a lot that needs to be reshaped, reshuffled, that there's just a lot of ambiguity in need of ordering, that they'll be supported in doing so, that they have political backing from the mayor and from the council in having free reign to actually try new things and be bold and not be so risk averse. I mean, that's on us to set that tone. And that's on me, especially, to set that tone.
And so we're looking for somebody that has the energy to drive that change
That's
and
what I'm
the
looking for.
patience to like put it all together
Yeah.
while also being accountability and not just reflexively saying no to new things.
And having the courage to make sweeping changes. I mean, it's okay to piss some people off. It's okay to try new things. It's okay to fire people. You know, it's okay to
You heard it here first.
Right. It's okay to do things that have not been tried before or that appear unsafe. I mean, the analogy I keep going back to is, especially now in December, if you're driving on I-5, if it's rainy and you have to merge, sometimes speeding up is the safest course of action. Sometimes slowing down or stopping will get you killed. How is it any different from with the community?
And that's Tacoma?
That's everywhere.
And that's Tacoma right now.
And that's Tacoma in general, yes.
Okay. Anders, this has been so good. Do you have anything you want to say for the record? I mean, I want you to come back when you're running for re-election in a few years. I'm going to have to go back through the transcript and figure out what you're accountable for.
Sure.
But like, what is your final word on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, I appreciate the hard-hitting questions. We'll keep talking about this. If you want to ask me more detailed stuff, I have an interim email address before I get a city email address. If you want to ask more detailed questions, Mayor-Elect Ibsen at gmail.com. That's all public record after I get my city email. Once I am, it's going to be mayor@tacoma.gov after January. You're always welcome to reach out to me. If you have strong feelings about any of these issues, you're always welcome to contact me, the current mayor and council, the city manager. My request, my action item, if you are really interested in this stuff, is I would say of the most immediate pressing things that people should have influence on, it should be the city manager process. If you have strong feelings about the need for moving the city in a greater direction, just being grander, thinking on a bigger, less risk-averse scale, this is really the biggest thing that makes the biggest difference, because the most innovative policy, the metrics, all these things that you've been asking for, they are contingent on having enthusiastic, true believers with the follow-through to do it. And that's how we do it, is insisting on amazing people joining our institution. And we need your help to do that.
Okay, great. Doug is waving at me, so I have to wrap it up, but I have 2 emergency questions to ask you really fast before we close out. Okay, the first one is, are you going to stay, you've been so accessible as a campaigner, like going to people's houses, asking for feedback. Do you still want people to tell you what they think while you're in office, or are you just going to be like less interested in hearing that? I'm assuming you still want to hear from people.
That's literally the point of being a
in
representative.
real life.
Yes.
Okay, cool. The second one is your other job, our world, real estate world.
Yeah.
How will you keep, and I know we have like almost no time left, but like, how will you keep a separation? I know there are people that have messaged me that are concerned. Like, how do you keep your mayor life separate from your real estate mogul life?
Sure. Well, mogul, I appreciate the compliment. Yeah. Even before I was a candidate, I literally called my old city attorney. I asked him if I could still continue to practice. And he basically told me in so many words, just avoid conflicts of interest and institute smart policies. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay. All right. Well, people are watching you, Anders. They're watching you.
Yeah,
they're ready to catch you in a mistake. I've got so many messages.
I've been watched for a number of years. It's how it goes.
And do you feel like you're ready to do this?
I mean, why else run, right? I mean, this is about improving people's lives. It's about doing the best we can to make Tacoma even better. It's about innovating, and it's about sometimes upsetting the apple cart. And that's what it's what gets me up in the morning every day.
Well, I know you can handle it. I'm very curious to see how this goes.
All right. Thanks so much, Marguerite.
All right. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
If you like this podcast, check out movetotacoma.com. MoveToTacoma.com is a neighborhood guide, blog, and podcast to help people in Tacoma, Pierce County, and beyond find their place in the city of destiny. More information at MoveToTacoma.com. Move to Tacoma is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out these other shows: Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Citizen Tacoma, Crossing Division, Grit and Grain, What Say You, and Kitchen 253.
This is Channel 253.